Good morning, children. Welcome to the English session. Today, we shall be dealing with the lesson A Tiger in the Zoo by George Leslie Norris. The poem, written by Leslie Norris, explains the agony and helplessness of a caged tiger that lives in a zoo. The poet explains what his life could be if he had been a free animal. The poet has tried to explain about the condition of animals that are caged by human beings for their own fun. Now let's analyze the poem. He stalks in his vivid stripes a few steps of his cage on pads of velvet quiet in his quiet rage. Here, the poet says that the tiger that is confined in the zoo moves around in the cage under his bright colored skin. He further says that the tiger can take only a few steps because the cage is small and it is not easy to move in it. One cannot hear his footsteps because he has very soft feet, like velvet, because of which there is no sound of the tiger's footsteps. The tiger tries to control his anger by quietly walking in the limited area of his cage. He is angry because he is not free. He should be lurking in shadow, sliding through long grass near the water hole where plum deer pass. The poet says that if this tiger was free, he would have hid himself behind the long grass near the water bodies so that he could easily catch a deer in order to have it as its food. Basically, the poet wants to say that the actual life of a tiger is to live in jungle where he could catch his prey and eat it, but the tiger in the cage cannot do so. He should be snarling around houses at the jungle's edge, baring his white fangs, his claws, terrorizing the village. The poet says that if the tiger would have been free, he would have snarled around the houses located at the outskirts of the forest. He would terrorize people with his sharp teeth and claws. This would create fear among the people living in the villages. But he is locked in a concrete cell, his strength behind bars, stalking the length of his cage, ignoring visitors. Now the poet comes to the reality of the tiger that is inside the cage. He says that the tiger is confined in a strong cell which is made of strong building material. He further says that as the tiger is behind bars, so his ferociousness is also behind the bars. He just stalks in the cage. He never tries to terrorize the visitors because his power is restricted by the cage. Therefore, he never tries to terrorize the visitors as he cannot attack them. He hears the last voice at night, the patrolling cars, and stares with his brilliant eyes at the brilliant stars. The poet says that in the night, the tiger hears the sounds of the patrolling cars. Patrolling cars are the vehicles of police which are used to guard at night. So in the night, the tiger hears the sounds of these cars. He then stares at the shining stars with his shining eyes. The poet wants to say that the tiger is sad, and as he is confined in the cage, so he cannot do anything. Therefore, he stares at the stars in the night and tries to divert his thoughts towards them. The gist of the poem. The poem provides a contrast in the mood and environment of a tiger when he is in the zoo and when he is in the forest. In the zoo, he has no liberty. He is kept in a cemented cell behind the bars. He feels angry, frustrated, and helpless. This reminds him of his natural habitat, his hiding and sliding in the long grass near the water hole and pouncing upon the fat deer. How he terrorized the villages, displaying his sharp teeth and claws. At night, in the zoo, he hears the sounds of patrolling cars and looks at the bright stars with his bright eyes. Now, the literary devices of the poem. The first literary device is personification. The tiger is personified over here. From the first line, it is understood. He stalks in his vivid stripes. Instead of it, he is used. So, the tiger is personified over here. The next literary device is metaphor. In the third line of the first stanza, you may find on the pads of velvet quiet. Velvet here means pause. The tiger's pause. So velvet refers to pause. So that is the metaphor used over here. The third literary device used is oxymoron. Oxymoron is opposite words that are used together. Quiet rage. Here the tiger is angry because he's in the cage. Quiet, is silent, and rage is angry. So two opposites are joined together. The fourth literary device used is alliteration. The last line of the second stanza, where plum deer pass, p sound is repeated. The second line of the fourth stanza, behind bars, b sound is repeated. And the first line of the last stanza, he hears, her sound is repeated. The fifth literary device used is assonance. The first line of the third stanza, around houses, ow sound is repeated. The first line of the fourth stanza, but he is locked in a concrete cell, the e sound is repeated over here. In he, in concrete. And the second last line of the last stanza, and stares with his brilliant eyes. Here e sound is again repeated as in with, his, and brilliant. The sixth literary device used is consonants. Consonants is repetition of the consonant sounds. The third line of the third stanza, bearing his white fangs, his claws. Here sir sound is repeated, his, fangs, again his, and claws. The second line of the fourth stanza, his strength behind bars. Again over here, his strength, the sir sound in his, and strength as well as in bars. The last literary device used is onomatopoeia. Onomatopoeia means sound words. In the first line of the third stanza, snarling is an onomatopoeia. These are some of the literary devices used in the poem. With that, we have come to the end of the session. Thank you and have a nice day.